Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review here on Pop Culture Philosophers, and the first of the year, so Happy New Year. Station, I hope this year brings you plenty of happiness and joy and all that kind of stuff, and I hope you learn a lot too. Anyway, Happy New Year, everybody. We got a small selection of comics this week. We had a big week last week for Christmas. This week for New Year's, we have kind of a small week, and we still haven't gotten our diamond shipment at the shop. It's not going to come until like later on in this week, but there's only like one or two books that I was going to read, so we'll cover those next week. However, we always start with the pick of the week, and this week's pick of the week, The Ultimates, issue number 8 from Marvel Comics. This is written by Dennis Camp with artwork by Juan Frigeri. Yes, Juan Frigeri. This was a really great, cool, high concept issue of The Ultimates. Now, I think Dennis Camp's been doing a fantastic job on this series so far. It almost made my top books of the year. It was right there on that fine edge. Dennis Camp is able to provide... So first of all, the Ultimates in this universe, I don't have to keep explaining what the Ultimate Universe is right now. It's a new iteration of the Ultimate Universe. The world was basically unmade by the maker. He set it up so that he could win. He's away. Now we got heroes spawning, and the Ultimates are around, right? Captain America, She-Hulk, all that kind of stuff, right? I've been loving what Dennis Camp has been doing with this book, building up these characters. They're interesting characters. This story's been very engaging. And one of the things I love about Dennis Camp's work is the high concept nature of a lot of his work, a lot of his writing, a lot of his fiction, right? That really comes to the top here in Ultimates number 8. So this is the introduction of the new Ultimate Guardians of the Galaxy. They're coming from the future. There's lots of wild ideas that are thrown around that, and I've said this about other people's work like Darcy Van Polgees. I've said this about Grant Morrison. I'll say this about Dennis Camp. Ideas that anybody else could take and just do 100 issues of a series on that are just kind of like throwaway lines, just interesting concepts and cool moments within this book. So I love the high concept, especially all the stuff involving the time travel. The character work is really stellar in the pages of The Ultimates. Juan Frigeri's artwork is pretty solid, and I do think that this is the best work that he's done on this series so far. This is a really exciting comic book. It's the kind of stuff I love. It's not overly challenging. It just has some really crazy concepts in it, but they're not even the main point of the story. I love this new iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I love their connection to this iteration of the Ultimates. I'm loving this book. Dennis Camp is doing an absolutely fantastic job, and the first pick of the week goes to the Ultimates from Dennis Camp, Juan Frigeri, and company, and Marvel. Also from Marvel, we have Sam Wilson, Captain America, issue number 1. We've got a new Captain America movie on the way in, what is it? It's not May, that's Thunderbolts. I guess it's in March. So right around the corner, we got a new Captain America movie that's focusing with Sam Wilson as Captain America. It's got the Red Hulk in it. So of course you got to have a new Sam Wilson's Captain America comic to go along with that movie that also has the Red Hulk. Though this isn't the Red Hulk that you know, it's a different version of it, but that's fine. We'll forgive it for that. The book itself is alright. It's decent. It's not going to win a lot of people over if you're not already a fan of Sam Wilson's Captain America. It's decent. It points out some interesting things about society and what Captain Sam Wilson, Captain America, and some of his contemporaries have to deal with, right? The artwork is all right. Artwork was actually kind of rough. It was just kind of okay, and the story didn't really do anything to like super wow me. It was more talky, less showy, and it didn't have a whole lot of action to it, and I thought that the art kind of staggered a little bit when it got to the action scene. So I thought it could have been better. It was all right. It didn't completely suck, but it wasn't that great. Then we've got Cable, Love and Chrome, issue number 1, the start of a new Cable miniseries. This is written by David Pepose with artwork by someone Henderson. We're going to find out. Mike Henderson. The artwork in this one, I wouldn't say is necessarily the best, but there is a frantic, raw, edgy kind of energy to it that I really do think works for a Cable story, and in particular for this one. But there are some moments where, Maybe some of the figure work just comes across a little bit wonky, but I can forgive it for that because the story is top notch. David Pepose knows how to write Cable, and this is the Cable that I grew up reading. This is the Cable that I know and love, and I am all here for it. This story involves Cable in a different future. He's kind of sprung into a future or a timeline that he's not familiar with. Everybody's got the techno-organic virus there, so it feels like he's got a home. But maybe that feeling is too good to be true. I really liked it. If you're an old school Cable fan, I think you might want to check this one out. Cable, Love, and Chrome out this week from Marvel Comics. Then we've got Deadpool Wolverine issue number 1, because there was a Deadpool Wolverine movie. That was one of the most successful movies of last year. So they did a Deadpool Wolverine book already. Then they did a Deadpool Wolverine one-shot. That was a collection of a bunch of single-page parts of stories that were in Marvel Comics throughout the year. Now we got another Deadpool Wolverine story. Now this one is written by Benjamin Percy with artwork by Cassara. It's Joseph Cassara, or is it Joshua Cassara? I don't know where the credits are. It's Joshua Cassara. The art in this book was pretty cool. Deadpool was slightly annoying, but like Deadpool's just kind of slightly annoying to me to begin with. But the art was really cool. The action was cool. The humor is there. It's basically Deadpool is getting mind controlled by someone, and he goes to team up with Wolverine. Wolverine finds out he's being mind controlled. Hijinks ensue, and a lot of violence as well. So the violence is there, the action is there, the art's there, the story's pretty solid. But what's really cool about this book is the ending. The ending was awesome. It was an ending that people probably my age, I'm in my early 40s, I think people my age are really going to like this ending. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you definitely, even if you're not going to pick up this book, take a look at the ending and see what's up. Now, it's also got a variant cover by Frank Miller. And y'all know I love my boy Frank Miller, and I don't like to shit on his modern work. Dude's like in his 60s. He's not feeling the greatest. He's going through some stuff. I just hope Marvel's giving him like 5 Gs per cover that he's been doing. That's like the coolest troll in my mind is Frank Miller doing books and covers that like really like agitate and aggravate a lot of people and then getting paid for it. That's pretty dope. So I've been here for a lot of these Frank Miller covers. This one though, Uncle Frank, I don't know what is going on with this Wolverine mask. That is ridiculous. I like this weird, ugly, chunky Deadpool there, but that Wolverine, that's something, y'all, isn't it? I mean, I know y'all got thoughts. Then we got What If Galactus Transformed Hulk, issue number 1, the first of a new series of one-shots. They're going to be What If Galactus turned this person into a cosmic herald, right? You got like with Spider-Gwen, is Moon Knight one? Yeah, Moon Knight, Gambit, Spider-Gwen, and Rogue. It'll kick it off with the Hulk. I don't know if it's a different team on each book. It's probably a different writer, or I mean a different artist. This is art by Lan Medina. Matt Groom is the writer. This one was all right. This one wasn't that great. It's okay. I thought it was kind of dumb, to be honest with you. I thought it was trite. I thought it was just kind of in and out. And I mean, I guess that's the job of these what if one shots. You know, it goes in there. What if Hulk was Galactus's herald? It tells that story. I hated the dialogue. I thought the characters acted completely out of character. I thought the dialogue was really, really whack, to be honest with you. I just didn't really vibe with it. But what I am vibing with is this Frank Miller cover. Here, I'm like, what are you doing? Here's what I love about this one. Look how huge that moon looks. That moon is huge compared to the Earth, right? That's fine. Maybe it's perspective. Galactus. It looks like Frank Miller didn't use any reference for Galactus's design at all. It was just like, whatever. This is Galactus. I love it. We were talking about this at work today. We were talking about how like crazy this one was. And everybody else was like, well, this one sucks too. And I was like, no, actually, I really like this one. There's some Frank Miller's been doing this stuff for like 30 plus years, right? Like, we all realize that once he started doing Sin City in particular, he started like shifting some stuff. There's no difference between this and like Dark Knight Strikes Again. A lot of people hated it back then. That's fine. We all have our personal tastes. For some reason, I love these ugly covers that he's been doing. This Galactus one, I'm going to give it the cover of the week. How about that? All right. Also, there is a Mark Spears third print of Mark Spears Monsters, number 1. There's a 1 in 20 that's like an homage to Nightmare on Elm Street. That's a good runner-up. But I'm sorry, Mark. Frank beat you this week. All right, over at DC, we have Justice League, The Atom Project, issue number 1. When I first heard about this book, I was like, oh, this is probably going to be something that's not that great. I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty solid comic. It's written by John Ridley and Ryan Parrott. It's got artwork by Mike Perkins, so the artwork is really cool. So part of the story of the DC universe right now is that a lot of people's powers after absolute power never returned to them, right? Some of the powers went to other people. For instance, Lois Lane is Superwoman because she has Superman-type powers that were taken from someone else, right? Because of the whole absolute power thing. Well, we know from books like Justice League Unlimited that the Atoms are kind of running around and trying to find these powers and find a way to give the powers back to their rightful owners, right? And to contain these powers. This is the story of that project, of them doing this, and the importance of Captain Atom to their project. But what happens when one of the most important characters to their project, Captain Atom, decides to run away? That's kind of what this vibe is. It's a little bit of a fugitive type story, and at the same time exploring more of this concept of how the Atoms, Ray and Ryan, are trying to figure out how to give these powers back to the people and take them away from the people that don't have to deal with that whole thing. Mike Perkins' artwork is great. The story is pretty solid. The dialogue is solid. It doesn't have the best pace or momentum or flow throughout, but it was intriguing enough, and I'll come back for more. Then we've got Absolute Superman issue number 3. Out of all 3 of the Absolute books so far, this has been my least favorite. However, this is my favorite issue of Absolute Superman. This one is mostly all set. It is all set on Krypton. We are getting more of the origin of Kal-El in this Absolute universe. And there's some differences, right? Like one of the differences, which we've already seen, is that he's not a baby when Krypton gets destroyed. He's a kid. He's already a kid, like grown. He's thinking, he's writing, he's doing all kinds of stuff. He's like not even like a 5-year-old. He's like a 10 or 12-year-old or something like that, right? That's going to lead to a different interpretation of Superman, right? Kind of like the idea of like Supergirl, where she actually has memories of Krypton, knows what she's lost. Cal's never really had that, right? He's always had a little bit of a disconnect between his heritage with Krypton just because he was raised mostly on Earth, right? So that's an interesting dynamic that I want to see explored by writer Jason Aaron, and this is actually a pretty solid issue. I liked it a lot. And the artwork, is it Rafa Sandoval? The artwork is amazing in this. There's some concepts, some themes that I'm not 100% sold on in Absolute Superman so far, but this issue worked. And to kind of redo the origin or the destruction of Krypton, I should say, and do it in an interesting way and make Superman's mom absolutely freaking badass, that's awesome. This was my favorite issue of Absolute Superman so far. I thought it was really good. Then we've got Batman 156, the penultimate issue of Chip Zdarsky's run. I've made it this far. Might as well make it through. I did not like this issue. Not at all. I think Chip's been a bit too on the nose with some stuff in his Batman run. This one in particular, you get the big reveal of who's really behind all the evil machinations that have been going on throughout Chip Zdarsky's Batman run with the manipulation of Gotham and characters like Vandal Savage and Commissioner Gordon, or former Commissioner Gordon, and the Riddler, and even Bruce himself. You get the big reveal, and it's just like, yeah, it's all right, of course. It's cool, I guess. We'll see what happens. You get the reveal of who the dude is. I can't even remember what they call the dude now. Commander Star. So Commander Star is somebody. It's tied into that big reveal. I don't know. Tony Daniel artwork. It's a little stiff. Stiff in the story. Stiff in the artwork. Did not really work for me. I'm not really... I mean, I would say that overall now, unless Chip pulls a miracle out of his ass in the final issue, I think Chip Zdarsky's Batman run's kind of a dud. That's just me personally. Then we got Two-Face issue number 2. This would be Two-Face's favorite issue of a Two-Face series, would be number 2, right? I didn't really like issue number 1 so much, and the thing I really didn't like about issue number 1 is what I don't necessarily like about issue number 2. It's this idea that Harvey Dent is more in control of the entity known as Two-Face right now, and what he's doing is kind of having these underground trials for criminals and stuff. I think that's just inherently silly and goofy, but it's also kind of inherently Two-Face and inherently Batman and Gotham. So I can't fault it too much for that, especially because issue number 2 was a little bit better. I thought issue number 2 was a lot better, in fact. I love the artwork in this book. I love the coloring. The coloring in this book is exceptional. Some really great choices, especially when we're in the mindscape of Harvey Dent / Two-Face. I like the story enough. I like the vibe of what we're going with it. It's all right. I like the art the most. It's Fabio Veras, and we got Yvonne Placencia on the coloring. Christian Ward is writing it, and it's all right. I think it could be a little bit tighter, a little bit better script-wise, but the art's pretty cool, and the second issue, for me, was an improvement over the first. All right, then we got Batgirl here with issue number 3. I'm still liking Batgirl. This is more of a wordy issue, but then it kind of kicks the action into gear, so I liked it. And what I like the most about this, and this is a Cassandra Cain Batgirl book in which Lady Shiva, her mother, has returned to Gotham because there's a whole group of people that are trying to kill Shiva and anybody connected to her, including her daughter, Cassandra Cain. I love how this book is taking the idea, of course, Cassandra Cain, she has issues with her mom. Her mom's this, like, absolute evil POS named Lady Shiva, right? But there's a little bit of a nuance to that this book, especially in issue number 3, that the writer is starting to kind of play with, and I really appreciate that. I really like Cassandra's journey in this book, especially coming up against new information or new interpretations of existing information, or maybe she realizes she doesn't quite know everything. I love the callbacks to the early days of Cassandra Cain as Batgirl. I like this. Tate Bromball is the writer, and Takeshi Miyazawa is the artist. I like the art. I love the coloring. It's Mike Spicer. I like the art. I like the story. I like the vibe. I like the themes. I'm liking this Batgirl book. All right. Then we got JSA here with issue number 3. This is written by Jeff Lemire. It's doing JSA. It seems like a no-brainer, but I don't know. Like, issue 1 and 2 didn't quite work for me. It felt like it was way too rushed. Everything starts happening all at once, and it felt like we're at the end of a run rather than the beginning of a new era. Now, I can't fault the team for deciding to take that direction. It's not what I would have done or what I would have preferred, especially since JSA hasn't really had their own book in so long. I mean, I know that Jeff Johns had the 12-issue run or whatever, but this feels like the end of a run, right? They're doing this big Ragnarok story. It's all over the place. We got some reveals in issue number 3. They kind of make sense. They're also infuriating, some of them at the same time. But issue 3 had some better moments, and it's starting, at least the pace for me, is starting to iron out a little bit. I feel like the book's been a little bit clunky, and it doesn't serve as a great introduction to new readers for the JSA. It just kind of throws you into like what feels like the end of a story. That's been my biggest criticism with the book. The art could be a little bit better too. I mean, it's all right. We do got some good moments. I would say that issue 3 probably is the strongest of these 3 issues, but it's still just kind of okay, and for me, subpar on what I expect from Jeff Lemire. It also, by the way, gets the smell of the week. I really like the smell of this JSA book. Not all the DC books smell the same. The JSA, though, smells a little bit different. It smells like vintaged nostalgia and frantic pacing is what it smells like. All right, then we got Poison Ivy here with issue number 29. Poison Ivy's been a great book. G. Willow Wilson, for 29 plus issues now, has been absolutely nailing this book, this characterization of Pamela, this journey of the character, kind of treading that line between hero and villain and doing it in such a great way. In these last few issues, we've been doing this new story where there is a group of extremists who are inspired by Poison Ivy, and they have a leader, right? They call him like the first acolyte or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Who that person is revealed in the pages of issue number 29, and it is not a surprise whatsoever. It is something that anybody could have seen coming if they got 2 brain cells to rub together. So the reveal kind of was a little bit lackluster, but I still enjoy this book. I enjoyed this issue, and I really like Takara's artwork, especially some of the bigger moments where Poison Ivy is like completely ivying out. Some really great stuff there. I've enjoyed this book, and it continues to be really cool. Also, from DC, we've got facsimiles now of Batman Hush. They're putting back out again the Batman Hush story, because in a couple months we got Batman Hush 2, Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee. They're doing foil covers, which I think is super, super cool. I'm not necessarily the hugest fan of Hush, but maybe that they're doing these facsimiles, I'll read along. issue to issue and reformulate an opinion or something like that. But look, you also got that Tom Brady got milk ad in foil too. That's worth it. Over at Image, we've got Saga here with issue 71. 71, we're trucking away towards the end of Saga. I believe they're planning on only like 100, 104, 105 issues, something like that. This is a really great issue of Saga, though. Saga's one of those books, though, that because of its release schedule, I think it hinders weekly enjoyment or monthly enjoyment or issue-to-issue enjoyment of this book. You get just enough, though, to keep you engaged. You get a little bit of movement and character arcs, but sometimes there's so long of a gap between issues, and especially between story arcs, that you kind of lose the place of where certain characters are. So this is a book that rates a lot better in big chunky reading sessions than it does issue to issue, but it's still enough to carry you through because you know the main characters. So now sometimes you go, oh man, the Will, where was he? Why is he there? I kind of forget. But our main characters, like Alana and the kids, you know their journey. You see them every single issue. This one pulls that story forward a little bit further. A really great ending, a really great setup for the next issue. Saga was solid yet again. Then we've got Spawn here with 360. Todd McFarlane returns to the world of Spawn as the sole writer to start this Hell on Earth thing. Hell on Earth is coming, so we're building up into it. You got Brett Booth's crazy 90s infused art style. The Dead Zones, I thought I remembered the Dead Zones being unlocked and all the Spawns getting their powers back in one of the Spawn books recently. This is before that moment. If maybe I'm misremembering and that didn't actually happen, correct me down below if it didn't. But this was a cool one where everything is really coming to a head. The moment's about to hit, and we're about to get into this big new era of Spawn, Hell on Earth. Cardstock cover, $2.99. Brett Booth, 90s infused artwork, and a ongoing story that's never boring. Well, rarely boring. Spawn 360 was pretty cool, and we're going to wrap it up with Savage Dragon 274. Eric Larson still doing what Eric Larson's been doing on this book, which is being crazy, absurd, ridiculous, and fun. I love this book. Now, this one is all about Mr. Glom, who's taken on... So there's this dude named Frank who's married to this chick. I don't know many of these characters because I just started reading Savage Dragon like probably 8, 10 issues ago. And I decided, just do it old school, Robbie, like you used to when you're a kid. Jump into a series and just ride with it as long as you're enjoying it. You'll eventually figure it all out. But there's this dude, Mr. Glum, and he has switched bodies with this dude named Frank, who is her husband. And they've been having some really good sex, apparently. There's some wild stuff going on in the pages of Savage Dragon. So she goes to the world of Mr. Glum to find Mr. Glum in Frank's body, or Frank in Mr. Glum's body, because Mr. Glum's in Frank's body, and trying to take care of it. Man, I love this book. It is so ridiculous, wild, Kirby-inspired, but definitely pushes way more boundaries than Kirby would. I had to cover that panel up for sure. I like this book. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think Eric Larson's cooking. I say let him cook. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. That's what I dug. Let's recap. Savage Dragon is wild. Spawn is Spawn Spawn is as Spawn as it's ever been. Saga was a really solid issue. Batman Hush is being reprinted issue to issue in facsimile form, including foils. That's cool. Poison Ivy continues to be great. JSA, better issue, but still a little weak. Batgirl, really solid, really liking that. Two-Face, a little bit of an improvement on issue number 1. Batman, no, I'm not liking it. I'm just not feeling it. Absolute Superman, this was my favorite issue of Absolute Superman yet. Justice League The Atom Project was actually pretty solid and definitely worth checking out. What If Galactus Transformed Hulk wasn't very good, but I'm going to give that Frank Miller cover the cover of the week. Deadpool and Wolverine, this Frank Miller cover is not very good. That cover is really good. Good art, good story. Pretty solid run right there, or a pretty solid start to a run. Cable Love and Chrome was a really fun, old-school Cable-type story. Sam Wilson, Captain America, was a little bit overwrought and not as exciting and dynamic as it could have been, but the Ultimates number 8 gets the pick of the week because of the introduction of the Ultimate Guardians of the Galaxy, the high concepts that are just played with and not the main focus of the book, but it's the characterization and the dynamic in the relationship between this version of the Guardians of the Galaxy and this version of the Ultimates that I really liked. This one was resoundingly the best comic I read this week. for the first week of 2025. All right, what are you reading? What are you digging? What are you looking forward to coming up in 2025 comic book wise? Let us know in the comments down below. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you all so much for being here for the year of PCPX. That's what we're doing anyway. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Station, pop, pop.